April 8, 1943, 27,000 feet above Caen, France. The wind screams across the fuselage of a B-17 Flying Fortress, slicing through the thin air like a blade. Frost rims the windows. The world below is a blur of gray and green, broken by rivers that twist like veins through the land. Inside the aircraft, the crew of 10 men are locked into the mechanical rhythm of war. Oxygen masks hissing, engines roaring, flak bursts flashing in the distance. In the glass nose of the bomber, Lieutenant William Billy Carter leans over a strange, bulbous device mounted before him. The machine looks almost out of place, part telescope, part periscope, part enigma. Its polished aluminum gleams under the dim red lights. Beneath Carter's gloved hands, fine gears hum softly. He peers through the eyepiece, his breath fogging the glass, and the sight comes alive. Grids, crosshairs, and a slowly drifting landscape below. The crew's voices crackle in his headset. Target in 2 minutes. The pilot shouts from above. Flak at 11 o'clock. Comes another call. Carter doesn't answer. His world has narrowed to the view inside the Norden Bombsight, a device whispered about among bomber crews as the wonder weapon. With it, they're told, they can drop a bomb into a pickle barrel from 20,000 feet. He adjusts the knobs, his fingers moving with the delicacy of a jeweler. The bombsight's gyros stabilize, compensating for the aircraft's pitch and yaw. Numbers tick on a small dial as Carter aligns the crosshairs with the bridge below, a critical supply link for German armor. The sight calculates wind drift, altitude, speed, all through a complex ballet of gears and mathematics, invisible to the naked eye. The plane lurches as anti-aircraft shells burst around them, the concussions shaking rivets loose. Carter's heart hammers, but he holds the line. The target creeps into position, centered, steady, bombs away. He pulls the lever. The belly doors open, and a string of 500-pound bombs tumbles into the gray clouds below. Seconds later, the bridge erupts in a cascade of smoke and flame. Cheers fill the intercom. Carter leans back, exhausted, staring at the small metal device that made it possible. The Norden Bombsight, the brainchild of a quiet, near-blind engineer, had just rewritten the rules of aerial warfare, but few aboard that plane knew who had made it, or the lengths their government had gone to keep it secret. In labs and offices far from the front, guarded by armed MPs and sealed behind layers of classification, the bombsight's inventor lived under a kind of invisible captivity. His name was Carl L. Norden, a Dutch-born engineer whose obsession with precision would change not just the course of the air war, but the ethics of bombing itself. And as the Allied air campaign escalated, Norden's creation would become both a symbol of hope and an instrument of destruction. This is his story. New York City, 1913. The streets outside Columbia University are slick with rain. Streetcars hiss and clang down Broadway, and a young man, tall and thin, hurries across the campus courtyard with a stack of papers pressed to his chest. His name is Carl Lucas Norden, a recent immigrant from the Netherlands, barely fluent in English, but already obsessed with the precision of machines. Inside the lecture halls, professors speak of engineering as art, the balance between calculation and creativity. But for Norden, it is closer to faith. He spends hours sketching gyroscopes and pendulums in his notebook, chasing perfection through equations that others find impossible. To him, numbers have music. He was, in a way, born for it. As a child, Norden had been fascinated by clocks, not the faces, but the gears beneath. He would dismantle them, polishing brass and resetting cogs until they ticked with uncanny accuracy. But what set him apart was not just skill, it was obsession. He would later describe his dream in simple terms: to make machines see better than men. When World War I erupts in Europe, Norden watches from afar, disgusted by the chaos and inaccuracy of warfare. Bombs fall miles from their targets. Cities burn while military factories remain untouched. The engineer's mind cannot accept it, not the randomness, not the waste. He imagines a tool that could make war precise, almost surgical, a machine that could strike only what mattered. After graduation, he works for Sperry Gyroscope Company, designing stabilization systems for ships and aircraft. His grasp of balance, motion, and mechanical feedback systems earns him quiet respect. Yet his demeanor is difficult, reclusive, exacting, intolerant of what he sees as sloppiness. Colleagues whisper that he's a genius, but impossible to work with. Then, in the mid-1920s, Norden's life changes when a U.S. Navy officer, named Theodore Bart, visits Sperry's offices with a challenge. "We need a bombsight that can hit a ship from a mile up. Can you make one?" Most engineers laugh. Norden doesn't. He spends nights in his small Manhattan apartment, surrounded by blueprints, coffee cups, and ticking clocks. He calculates wind drift, airspeed, and gravitational fall, then designs a system that uses gyroscopic stabilization to hold the sight steady, a self-correcting eye in a shaking aircraft. His prototype is clunky, delicate, and terrifyingly complex, but when tested at a Navy range in 1928, the results are staggering. Bombs land within 30 feet of their targets. Word spreads quietly. Contracts follow. The Navy builds Norden, a secret workshop, tucked into the brick buildings of Lower Manhattan. Armed guards patrol the doors. Every employee must swear an oath not to discuss, describe, or even name what they are building to the public. Norden is just another engineer. To the military, he is the keeper of a weapon so precise it could change the face of air combat. Yet, as his invention grows in power, so does the pressure. Norden begins to fear that his creation, meant to make war cleaner, will instead make it easier. But history, by then, is already moving too fast. The world is sliding toward another war, and his bombsight will soon be at the heart of it. Wright Field, Ohio, September 19, 35. A row of B-10 bombers gleam under the morning sun. Engines humming as officers gather on the runway. The U.S. Army Air Corps is conducting a demonstration, not of firepower, but of accuracy. At the center of it all stands a quiet, bespectacled man in a rumpled gray suit, watching his invention being loaded into a test aircraft. Carl L. Norden looks more like a professor than an engineer of war. His hands tremble slightly as he adjusts his glasses. "Sir," says a young officer, "the device is ready." Norden nods, clutching his hat against the wind as the bomber roars down the runway. He never flies himself. His eyes are too weak, his nerves too fragile. Instead, he waits on the ground, stopwatch in hand, as the plane circles overhead. At 5,000 feet, a small shape drops, a bomb casing filled with chalk. It hits just yards from the painted target. The officers stare. One whistles low. By God, it works. Within months, the U.S. military signs an exclusive contract. The Norden Bombsight becomes one of the most tightly guarded secrets in the country, classified even higher than the Manhattan Project would later be. Each site is treated as if it were a piece of living code. Crews must sign vows of secrecy. Technicians are vetted by the FBI. When America enters the war after Pearl Harbor, the Norden becomes the heart of the daylight bombing campaign. B-17 and B-24 in the 8th Air Force carries one, a machine of brass, glass, and mathematics that sits in the nose like a sacred relic. To the bombardiers who use it, it feels almost mythical. Before each mission, they gather in dim briefing rooms while officers speak in hushed tones about precision strikes and pinpoint accuracy. The Norden, they are told, will let them spare civilians, destroy factories, and win the war through precision, not terror. But the truth is more complicated. The sight is miraculous in the calm air of training flights, but in combat, conditions are far from perfect. Winds shift, clouds roll in, flak shakes the planes so violently that even the finest calibration can drift. Still, the crews believe in the legend. Before takeoff, bombardiers carry the Norden Bombsight from the armory to their plane in a locked steel case, handcuffed to their wrist. It is a ritual of reverence and paranoia. If shot down, they are ordered to destroy it at all costs. Some even carry a small thermite charge to melt it before capture. Up in the skies over Europe, the sight becomes their only hope for order in chaos. In the glass nose of the flying fortress, the bombardier is isolated, a lone operator guiding destruction with a machine designed for perfection. He adjusts the dials, murmuring to himself as the aircraft bucks and dives. The crosshairs drift, then settle. The Norden takes in airspeed, altitude, drift all through its gyroscopic brain, and releases the bomb automatically at the precise instant. When it works, it feels divine. When it fails, the consequences are catastrophic. Meanwhile, back in America, Carl Norden watches the growing faith in his invention with unease. He receives military commendations and contracts, but his demeanor darkens. He begins to call the bombsight "my cross." He never meant it to be a weapon of destruction, he meant it to end destruction. Yet, as Europe burns, the line between precision and devastation blurs. The Norden Bombsight, once the dream of a perfectionist student, has become the instrument of industrial war. And as the Allies prepare to carry that war deep into Germany, the myth of accuracy will meet the reality of fire. Over Schweinfurt, Germany, August 17, 1943. At 24,000 feet, the formation of B-17s stretches across the sky like a silver armada. Each bomber hums with tension, its engines droning in perfect formation. Inside Hell's Angel 2, Lieutenant Billy Carter once again hunches over his Norden bombs. His oxygen mask fogs with every breath. Below him, the sprawling factories that keep Hitler's tanks rolling across Europe. Bomb run, starting. The pilot calls out. The intercom falls silent except for the hiss of static and the distant cough of flak. The bombardier locks onto the target, his hands steadying the sight. Crosswinds buffet the plane, throwing the crosshairs wide. He corrects gently, almost tenderly, trusting the gyros within the Norden to find truth amid chaos. Steady, steady. The bomb doors creak open. Anti-aircraft shells bloom in black puffs around them, rattling the fuselage. A fighter darts past, guns blazing, but Carter's eye never leaves the sight. Bombs away. A shudder ripples through the plane as the payload drops 5 tons of steel and fire. The crew cheers, banking hard to escape, but when reconnaissance photos come back days later, the truth is bitter. Only a fraction of the bombs hit the target. The rest fell miles away, into homes, streets, and empty fields. The promise of precision had collided with the reality of weather, stress, and human imperfection. In briefing rooms, generals still spoke of surgical strikes. They showed Norden's diagrams and boasted of one-bomb accuracy, but the airmen knew better. At altitude, winds could change direction 3 times in a minute. Cloud banks could obscure targets entirely. Even the vibration of machine gun fire could throw the crosshairs off by hundreds of feet. Still, they kept believing, not because the bombsight was flawless, but because the alternative was too terrible to face. Meanwhile, in Washington, Carl Norden followed the campaign's reports with growing despair. He wrote letters to the War Department insisting his invention was being misused, that it was meant for small, tactical targets, not for leveling cities. His protests were quietly filed away. The war demanded results, not philosophy. The Allies needed to cripple Germany's industry, and precision had become as much propaganda as practice. In London, the Royal Air Force had already abandoned daylight bombing after catastrophic losses, turning instead to area bombing, massive night raids that flattened entire districts. The Americans, armed with Norden's miracle, insisted they could do better, that they could bomb humanely. Yet as the campaign wore on, Schweinfurt, Regensburg, and Hamburg all burned the same. In the press, the Norden Bombsight was celebrated as the key to victory. In the skies, bombardiers whispered that it was both savior and curse. They revered it like a holy relic, and yet cursed its limitations when the flak grew thick and the clouds turned black. For Carl Norden, the man who once dreamed of machines that could see better than men, the reports of firestorms and civilian deaths tore at him. He retreated further into seclusion, rarely speaking to anyone but his closest engineers. "They are misusing my child," he muttered once to a colleague, but the machine he created now belonged to history, and history, once set in motion, could not be calibrated back to zero. As 1944 approached, the bombsight would face its ultimate test in the skies above the heart of the Reich. February 25, 1944. Above Regensburg, Germany, the winter sky is a cruel, pale blue, perfect for the bombers. To the men of the 8th Air Force, that means no clouds, no excuses. The mission, cripple the Messerschmitt aircraft factories. The strategy, trust the Norden. Inside the lead B-17, Captain James Weller adjusts his oxygen mask and peers through the sight. He's young, calm, and meticulous, exactly the kind of man the Army Air Corps wants guiding its precision raids. The bombsight hums softly, its gyros spinning like a heart. Through the glass, Regensburg unfolds below, a medieval city laced with rivers and rooftops. Its factory complex gleaming at the edge of town. Bomb run, commencing, Weller radios. Steady as she goes. The formation tightens. The sky fills with the thunder of engines. Then, black bursts of flak peppered the air. A nearby fortress takes a direct hit, vanishing in a puff of flame. Weller keeps his eye on the target, voice steady despite the chaos. Crosswind, 8 knots. Just 2 degrees left. The Norden tracks the motion, calculating drift and release timing. The bombs drop perfectly aligned. Below. The target erupts, but so does the city. The blast waves ripple through the old streets, shattering homes, churches, and schools. The fires spread faster than any map or mission plan could predict. From the sky, it looks clean, mechanical. From the ground, it is apocalypse. When Weller's crew returns to base, they are told the raid was a success. Factories destroyed, output crippled. Yet photographs show more than the factory. They show the whole of Regensburg aflame. The men stare at the images in silence. The Norden had done its job. The world beneath it had paid the price. Back in the United States, Carl Norden reads the reports in his small Manhattan office. His hair is thin now, his face worn. The Navy still keeps him under guard, his invention under lock and key. He rarely leaves the lab, and when he does, it's to attend secret conferences about post-war improvements. But inside, he feels hollow. He had built the bombsight to save lives, to make war efficient, not wanton. Yet, his own calculations had become the arithmetic of devastation. The irony, he realized, was unbearable. The more precise the machine became, the greater the destruction it enabled. Still, the war machine rolled on. By late 1944, thousands of Norden sights were mounted in every major U.S. bomber. Training manuals spoke of divine accuracy. Hollywood newsreels called it the eye of God. But the truth, whispered in mess halls and written in the letters of wary airmen, was simpler. No matter how perfect the instrument, war refused to be precise. As the Allies pushed toward victory, the bombsight's reputation reached its zenith, just as the idea of precision itself was being abandoned. Across the Pacific, a new campaign was beginning, one that would stretch Norden's invention to its moral breaking point. Tokyo awaited. And there, no amount of engineering could save the dream of clean warfare. Tokyo, March 9, 1945. Midnight. The B-29 super fortresses slice through the darkness like silent predators, their bellies heavy with incendiaries. Below them lies the largest city on Earth, a maze of wood and paper. At the front of one bomber, a Norden Bombsight gleams under a dim red light, waiting for calibration. But this mission is different. The order from General Curtis LeMay is blunt. No high-altitude precision runs tonight. The winds over Japan are too fierce, the jet stream too unpredictable. Instead, the bombers will fly low, 5,000 feet, and drop fire, not steel. No crosshairs, no careful mathematics. Just destruction. The bombardier looks down at the Norden, once considered the crown jewel of American engineering, and hesitates. Then he turns it off. He opens the bomb bay doors. What follows is one of the most devastating air raids in history. Tokyo burns for hours. The firestorm consumes 16 square miles of the city. More than 100,000 people die, burned, suffocated, or drowned trying to escape the heat. From the air, the bombers circle back over an inferno that glows brighter than dawn. The bombsight, the miracle of precision, has no place here. Back in the United States, Carl Norden receives the news with silent horror. He sits alone in his workshop, surrounded by disassembled gyros and lenses, reading the casualty estimates. To him, it is proof that the dream has died. His invention had promised control. But war had turned it into a ritual of annihilation. He writes in his journal, "Man seeks perfection, not to end war, but to perfect it." After the war, Norden fades quietly into obscurity. He never profits much from his creation. The government owns the patents. The military buries the details under new classifications. By 1947, jet technology and radar-guided bombs begin to render his precision sight obsolete. In interviews, Norden refuses to speak of its legacy. When pressed about its role in the firebombings or the atomic raids, he simply replies, "That was not my work." But of course, it was. The Norden Bombsight had changed everything, not because it achieved true precision, but because it convinced an entire generation that precision was possible. It gave war a language of justification, the illusion that killing could be clean if only the math were perfect. For the airmen who used it, the sight remained a paradox, a tool that demanded faith, discipline, and reverence, even as it revealed the limits of human control. Many would later say they trusted it more than themselves, yet doubted it every time they saw the smoke rise from a city they never meant to hit. Carl Norden died in 1950. There were no medals, no headlines, just the legacy of a man who dreamed of accuracy in a world that thrives on chaos. And yet, his idea that technology could make war humane endures. You can see its echo in every smart bomb, every guided missile, every promise of surgical strikes broadcast decades later. In the end, the bombsight was never just a machine. It was a mirror showing both the brilliance and blindness of its maker. High above the ruins of war, the glass eye of the Norden once looked down upon the earth, calculating perfection in the midst of madness. And in that reflection, it revealed a truth Carl Norden never intended to see. Precision is never the same as mercy.